So I'm Dr. Paramabandhu Groves. I'm a consultant psychiatrist specialising in addiction. I work in the National Health Service in London in the United Kingdom. I've been working in addiction for 20 years now, and I've been practicing Buddhism for rather longer than that. I've been teaching Buddhism and meditation for over 20 years. In 2004, I became interested in the mindfulness-based approaches to mental health problems and started teaching MBCT, that's mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for depression, and specifically it's for preventing relapse into depression. And I thought at the time, as I specialise in addiction, it'd be good to develop a course to help preventing relapse into addiction. So in 2005 I started teaching an addiction version of the course, which I called mindfulness-based relapse prevention. So I've been teaching that for some time now, and I was talking to Vimalasara, and we thought actually there's probably more in the Buddha's teachings apart from mindfulness that could help people who are in recovery from addiction. And it was really out of that conversation that came the book that we've written, 8-Step Recovery. The book is aimed at people who are in recovery from addiction, including severe addiction such as problems with alcohol, drugs and gambling, but also the book addresses itself to people with other addictive disorders such as problems with eating. And in addition, the book is really for anyone who feels that they struggle with obsessive or addictive behaviours, patterns of mind, whether or not they are a major source of trouble in their lives. This book addresses itself to that sort of problem that many of us struggle with. So there's really quite a wide range of people that this book is addressed to. So the Buddha's got a lot to say about craving and suffering in particular, and that seems to me that it's actually still relevant today much as it was 2,500 years ago. Addiction, of course, features craving as one aspect of addiction, so that immediately suggested that there might be something useful in the Buddha's teaching, given that the Buddha talks quite a lot about craving, particularly craving as a source of suffering. So what you have in the Buddhist tradition is a discussion of craving, a discussion of pain and suffering, and what the Buddha's teaching helps us to do is to learn to develop a wise relationship to our pain, to craving, in a way that minimises our own suffering, that reduces our own suffering. And the teachings that the Buddha talked about address themselves to just people as we are, as we were 2,500 years ago. In other words, the Buddha addresses himself to what we have in common as human beings, and really that hasn't changed very much in 2,500 years. So the teachings that he gave back then are still very relevant to us as we face pain, as we face suffering, as we work with craving today. So the way we understand addiction is in the sense that it's a natural tendency of the mind. In other words, the minds of human beings easily get caught up in addiction, and it's perfectly natural in some ways. We pursue pleasure, we pursue excitement, and from a certain point of view that's fine, there's not a problem in that. The trouble is that what happens is that we get stuck on those behaviours even after they are no longer leading to pleasure or excitement, or sometimes they may give some pleasure or they may give some excitement, but in the longer term they lead to more trouble. And it's that trouble that we're seeking to alleviate. We're seeking to help make changes so that we don't cause greater suffering in our lives. One of the key things that the Buddha stresses, that the Buddha's teaching stresses, is awareness or mindfulness. And what a mindfulness does is it gives us more choice. We become aware of our minds, we become aware of our behaviours, and that's the first step to making changes. And making changes is not just about letting go of behaviours that cause us difficulty, but it's also about savouring things, in a way about enjoying things. If we're really aware, we can really appreciate our lives, we can actually get more from our lives. So the Buddhist path, paradoxically, although it may seem as though it's just going to be a bit dull and just sort of stop all our pleasures, it actually can lead to greater satisfaction, greater enjoyment in our lives, as well as a real sense of freedom.